I developed a negotiation contract model for non-cooperative systems in this project. So with this model, the project can develop a better understanding of some individual systems with self-interests and strategic negotiators. So first, let's take a look at the model. This model has two capabilities. One is the negotiation protocol. The other is the decision framework. The negotiation protocol defines rules that individual systems must follow to communicate and interact with the SOS manager in a negotiation. It also defines the way in which a negotiation is initiated, progressed, and terminated. The decision framework includes mathematical models of individual systems' capability to participate in the SOS, as well as their self-interest behaviors. It also includes an optimization-based generator of alternatives for strategically negotiate multiple items with multiple attributes. It has a conflict evaluation function that evaluates the prospective outcome from each identified alternatives. In the remaining of my presentation, I will try to explain in more detail about these two capabilities. First, let's take a look at the negotiation protocol. The negotiation protocol defines the information that the individual system will receive from the SOS manager in terms of a contract. The contract defines multiple items with multiple attributes. In the setting of SOS acquisition, the multiple items are the capabilities and interfaces that the individual system is asked to provide. Attributes are the requirements on participation, include the requirements on time, resource consumption, and performance. The contract also defines some other constraints for the negotiation. For example, whether the contract is still under negotiation and when must an agreement or disagreement must be reached. The negotiation protocol also defines information that the individual system will send to the SOS manager. So the individual system will tell the manager what decisions she has made, any items she wants to provide, and whether she wants to request any modifications of the attribute's value. The negotiation protocol also defines the contracting process. This process is always initiated and terminated by the SOS manager. If the manager sends an original contract or a modified contract, the individual system will assess the contract and answer and reply to the SOS manager in terms whether she wants to accept the contract, reject the contract, or she wants to negotiate in further. If the SOS manager confirms a contract or cancels a contract, then the individual system does not need to reply anymore. Then let's move to the decision framework. First, take a look at the decision problem. Individual systems' ability to participate is measured by the performance on providing requested capabilities. The performance on providing a capability increases with the total resource allocated to the capability, but at a reduced margin. The total cost of participation is determined by the resource consumption over time. In general, cost of resource increases with time, and expenditure at a certain time is an increasing convex function of resource consumption at that time. So, to individual system, her decision is resource planning. In other words, she needs to determine a cost-effective plan for participating in the SOS. Let's take a look at the decision process. The decision process of an individual system includes the 6 steps illustrated on the slide. So feasibility analysis, conflict analysis, selection of a negotiation strategy, development of alternatives, assessment of prospective outcome for each alternative, and then select a preferred alternative. And I will try to explain each step in more details. The first step is feasibility analysis. The individual system wants to determine what capabilities she can provide and how well she can perform on providing the capabilities. So she characterizes the different capabilities into groups and treats them differently. For the capabilities that the individual system is not able to provide, conflicts cannot be resolved by negotiation. So these capabilities are excluded from further negotiation. Other capabilities are divided into another two groups. So for some capabilities, the requested capability exceed the system's maximum ability. So the SOS manager will have to make some necessary concession on the performance requirement in order to reach an agreement of participation. So in the future analysis, the individual system assumes a reduced performance requirement on those capabilities. And for other capabilities, the system's maximum abilities are greater than the performance requirements. So concessions from the SOS manager is not a must. So there is no hard assumptions is made on those capabilities. So if the contract is still under negotiation and the individual system is able to provide some of the capabilities, so we will move to the next step. The next step is the conflict analysis. The individual system wants to determine if she can fully meet all the participation requirements. Since there are multiple requirements, conflict could happen to each or a group of the requirements. It is important that we will determine whether there is a conflict using an optimization problem. So we defined an optimization problem PC. In this problem, we assume the requirements on participation time and the performance must be met. And then we try to minimize the total cost of participation. Accordingly, we calculate the reward margin. If the reward margin is below the target margin, conflicts present. Step 3 is about the selection of a negotiation strategy. And this is closely related to the behavior of the individual system. For non-cooperative system, an important feature is that they have a self-interested behavior. The self-interested behavior is reflected from two aspects. First, the individual system requires a necessary reward margin that must be met from participation. Even if the reward margin is greater than the necessary margin, the individual system may not accept the contract immediately. She may still negotiate and wants to, achieve a higher margin. And for non-cooperative systems, usually they are strategic negotiators. They do not make large concessions at one time. Instead, they make very small concessions in a progressive manner. Therefore, in this project, we choose the following strategy. We assume the individual system differentiates the targeted reward margin by the stage of negotiation. If further negotiation is not allowed, the individual system will accept the contract as long as the necessary margin is met. If further negotiation is allowed, the individual system will use the sufficient margin as the target of negotiation. She will make small concessions progressively and seek concessions from the SOS manager. Step 4 is the development of alternatives. As we know, seeking unilateral concession from the SOS manager tends to fail in a negotiation, leading to a disagreement on the participation. As we know, reaching an agreement of participation with the SOS manager is the necessary condition of receiving a positive reward. So, when conflicts present, the individual system has to make necessary concessions in order to reach an agreement of participation. So the question is, what bilateral concessions are potentially beneficial? In order to answer this question, individual system will use an optimization-based generator of alternatives for negotiation. And the main idea for this generator is that the individual system will identify a range of concessions in terms of alternative reward margin for herself. And then for each alternative reward margin, she will search all options of necessary concessions that the SOS manager has to make. All right, so first, we try to search alternatives of profit margin within the range from complete concession to zero concession. This is equivalent to developing alternatives of additional reward from a range as defined on the slide. The individual system will try to obtain the additional reward by seeking concessions from the SOS. For example, she requests for additional fund from the SOS manager. She may cut the budget, which requires the manager to reduce the performance requirement. Individual systems may request additional time to participate. Okay? And there is a relationship between the additional fund and the budget cut. Additional fund plus budget cut is equal to the increase of reward. All right, so any unique combination of the additional fund, budget cut, and overtime is one option of concession for the SOS. However, take a look at here. The budget cut, additional fund, and the overtime are not in the standard format of the negotiation. Therefore, we need to do something to convert those information into the standard format of negotiation. So therefore, we use the following algorithm to generate all alternatives of concessions for the SOS. And for each alternative K, we will solve the optimization problem PP to convert the budget cut and the overtime cap to the minimum reduction of performance and the minimum overtime. So this is how we convert the optimal solution to problem PP into the modifications of performance and the modifications of time. However, the additional fund will be split among the different items in the next step because this decision will impact the probability distributions of negotiation results. So let's move to step 5, assessment of prospective outcome. As we know, different results could happen from the negotiation of each stage. The individual system may succeed immediately from the negotiation. She may fail immediately, and she may be asked to, to move to the next stage of negotiation. The probability for each result could be different, and the reward from each result is also different. Therefore, we need to evaluate the probability distribution on these 3 different results for each item, as well as the rewards. The probability distribution is a function of the requested modifications of the contract. You can take a look at here. The larger the requested modifications, the higher the chance the individual system will fail in the negotiation. So we use the marginal probabilities of success to indicate the relationship between requested modifications and the probability distribution. So eventually, we calculate the expected total reward for any alternative K. It is the sum of the expected reward from different items. If you take a look at this equation, we will find out the system's decision impacts not only the reward from participation, but the chance of negotiating that reward successfully. We take one step further to define an optimization problem, PF, and use this problem to determine how to split the total additional fund needed among the different items in order to maximize the expected reward for any alternative K. You can take a look at here in the objective function, the probabilities of succeed are related to functions of the decision variables. So eventually, for any alternative K, we successfully convert the additional fund, budget cut, the cap of overtime, into the standard information that we needed for the negotiation. They are the modifications of performance, modifications of time, as well as the modifications of the funding. The last step is the selection of a preferred alternative. This step is just a simple decision based on the efforts of the previous step. In other words, we will choose the alternative that generates the highest expected reward. And that is the bilateral transaction, which maximizes the expected reward for the individual system. All right, so far we are able to determine what items the individual system will provide and what modifications of the attributes value she will propose to the SOS manager. And this is the result for the negotiation of each step. And we will repeat the decision process again until the SOS manager says the entire negotiation process is terminated.